Welcome, welcome, friends. It is a beautiful Tuesday here for me. I don't know what day it is for you. So, I'm here at my desk, and it's quite a mess. I want to begin talking about the emulation, the software that I'm using for emulation. Just going to do one system at a time here. I've got a screen capture set up for my emulation machine. I'm just sending that through a capture card into my main computer. It's kind of a mess. I got two keyboards here, two NES, and a bunch of controllers. One day I'll have my life together. I'll have a dedicated space for gaming and for recording, but for now I'm just gonna make do. So let's see, I've called this account on here Emu for emulator. Thought it seemed fitting. And again, I have no personal information whatsoever on this computer. It is strictly for testing purposes only. Whoa, what happened there? Okay. So, let's see. Always seems right to start off with the NES. That's where it all started for me. With console gaming, anyway. My first, if we're getting technical, my first video games were on the Commodore 64, but I'm not emulating the Commodore 64, at least not with this project. That'll be a future project, but for now, we're going to start off here with the, we're sticking to console gaming. I'm not doing any of the handhelds either. I might save that for another project also. I've been using Mesen. I thought about showing a variety of NES emulators, but Mesen works just fine. So I'm not. I'm just going to stick with this one. It works flawlessly. Mesen is cycle accurate, and for modern hardware, modern computers, that's not a problem, because we're just so much more powerful with the processing now than we were back then. So we can emulate these, with cycle accuracy without any issues at all. I'm using here this Bluetooth NES controller. I showed this in a previous video. This is meant for use with the Nintendo Switch, but since it's Bluetooth, it works with any old Bluetooth card, Bluetooth device. So I want to see if it will auto, you shouldn't have to hit the, one of the problems I've been having with all of these controllers is, I pair the Bluetooth device and I set it up and it works, and it'll work for that session of gaming. But then when I come back later, sometimes it doesn't. It's not paired. So I can test. Now I haven't added this yet in this situation. I can do, try and get my keyboard in here. I'm going to type the window button and then R, and that's going to bring up my run. And then I've already got in here joy.cpl, and that is a control panel program that I'm just going to run here. So you see it's picking up a wireless gamepad, and I'm going to go to properties. Uh-oh, what happened? Now it's not, it disappeared on me. It went away. How did that happen? Okay, it's back. That's scary. So you can test if one of the troubleshooting steps, if you have a gamepad or a controller that's not working in the emulator. Oh no. It's not connected correctly. Verified it's plugged into my computer. It's Bluetooth. There's nowhere to plug in anything anywhere. I've never had this happen before. Let's hit the retry button. It was just working earlier. But anyway, yeah, so it's not picking it up, because normally what would happen is you would see on here these things highlight when I push the button, and it's not doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of Mesen for now. And I'm going to close out of this, and I'm going to go to, I already got it pulled up, Bluetooth and other devices. I'm going to go down to the NES controller, which it says is connected, but I'm going to go ahead and remove this device. This is a consistent issue I've been having with these. It doesn't happen with, my Xbox controller when I have that hooked up. I've also got that one paired, but it's not connected right now. That's this guy right here. I'm not going to use that. But, okay, so I guess this will be a tutorial on how to hook this up too. So what you do is go to Add Bluetooth Device, Bluetooth, and then you hit this Wi-Fi button here. Hold it down till the green light comes on and it starts doing its thing. Then it should pop up. You see, I don't know what all this other stuff is here. Somebody's light, and I don't have one of these lamps in my house, so it's got to be the neighbors or something. Don't know what any of this stuff is. But anyway, see the NES controller, L. There's an L and an R, and they are two distinct, different controllers. I'm going to pick that, and it's just going to connect by itself. It's going to say your device is ready to go, and it's going to pop up with a little thing in the corner. So we're going to close out of that, and now if I do my window R and run joy.cpl, and then it's recognizing a wireless gamepad, and I hit properties. Now it should, yeah, see when I hit the buttons on the D-pad, BA, select, start. That's all the original controller had, but then the NES one has this L and R button. So they're all registering. So now it should be good to go on Mesen. So I'm going to go ahead and launch Mesen again. Now, like I said, this is pretty much the standard for NES emulation. There are some others out there. But let me see here. So there are, for instance, I've been playing around with RetroArch, excuse me. RetroArch is okay. I don't know why, but I don't really care for it. I mean, it's cool, it's not a bad thing, and it does a lot, it has a lot of capabilities. You can emulate a lot of things. I mean, if you don't know, RetroArch is pretty much just a platform where people create these cores for emulation. So you load up the core that you want for whatever system you're going to emulate. And there are multiple cores. There's multiple cores for NES, for SNES, whatever. And then there are other things, plugins that you can use on there. And it's cool. And I played around with it a little bit. I'll probably play around with it more and maybe do a video dedicated to RetroArch. But I really want to get, like I said, my goal is to recreate the experience of playing these games as much as possible. And in doing that, I want to use what is, in my opinion, the most accurate emulator. And Mesen seems to be the best. And there's other things you can do on here too. And I'm sure you can do these with others, but there are filters, for instance. The filters actually on Mesen are not the best. I think the ones with BeastNess are better. You can really recreate that CRT experience. But anyway, we're here to talk about Mesen and an NES, so let's do that. Set up the controller first of all. You're just going to go to Settings and Input, and then you can do multiple systems here, but we're doing NES here. So port 1 is going to be an NES controller, and you can do a port 2 if you want to. And it looks like this still is set up the way I had it set up, but basically all you do is you just click on it, and then you push the corresponding button. So I've clicked on the D-pad up, and now I'm going to push D-pad up. And this process would be the same no matter what you're doing or what you're using. If you're using, let's say, an Xbox controller, You're just going to map out these controls however you want to. Select is select, start is start, B is B, A is A, and it also gives you an option for a turbo, and I don't really use turbo a whole lot, but since we have these L and R here, I'm just going to go ahead and use these L and R as my turbo B and A. Might as well, right? So that's done, and you got all kinds of settings in here. Overclocking is one that you might mess with at some point, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Yes, I want to save my changes. So, whoops, I just spilled my drink over here. Oh well. Clean that up shortly. I hope the audio is taking. I don't really have an audio output device hooked up to this monitor right now, so I have no idea if you can hear me or not. If the audio doesn't work, I'll just probably dub over with a narration later. But anyway, what game should we start off with? Metroid's pretty cool. I'm just playing around with different games on here. Prince of Persia. Power Punch. Power Punch is an interesting game. I still have not gotten past the first guy, Borg. A lot of these games, I'll be honest, most of these NES games, at the time that I played them, I had no idea what was going on because I was so young, and I don't know, but Power Punch, I could never get past the first boss, and or not even the first boss, the first guy. And still, I was playing it earlier. I cannot get past the first guy. There's got to be some kind of a strategy. I don't know, maybe I just suck at video games. Prince of Persia is pretty cool. Some of these are just ones. The Zelda. So, yeah, I guess I'll talk about that now. Some of these games had performance issues on the original NES. And the original Zelda, The Legend of Zelda, that's one of them. If you find yourself on a screen where there's a lot of enemies, you might notice some slowdown, like I did. So I was playing this game. I was playing Zelda. I did a playthrough just for fun because I hadn't played Zelda in forever, the original one. And I noticed this slowdown, so I'm like, what is going on? Is this my PC? Is this the emulator? Because the computer should be able to handle NES with no problem, and I was kind of concerned. So I took to the Googles, and I found out that actually that was an issue on the original Zelda on the original Nintendo 64. When there was a screen with a lot of enemies, there was some slowdown. So you can fix that, like I showed you earlier, in the not in tools, but in settings under emulation. You can go to the NES and you can go to overclocking. And what you do is you add scan lines before and after. And what that does is just allow the virtual processor, if you will, to have some additional time to process before and after it's displayed. Because back on these older systems, there was not a dedicated GPU in some of them. But I probably shouldn't speak too much on that because I'll get something wrong and somebody will be really angry at me. But anyway, you're going to add scan lines before and after, and that solved the problem, actually. So I got this performing better than the original NES on this particular game anyway, on Zelda. But then when I went and tried to play another game, it completely broke the game, and I had to turn it back to 0 and 0. So you can do that. But what was I going to say? Yeah, so Mesen is so accurate that it'll even reproduce the glitches and the the flaws in the system, because it pretty much just emulates. I should probably clean this up now, but I'm not going to. I'm going to wait. Yeah, so it'll even reproduce the bugs and the errors and everything. So let's just get into something. What do I want to do? Top Gun. Let's do. I was already playing Top Gun apparently, I guess. Yeah, see, it works. I guess it just jumps right back into where you left off. That's pretty cool. I didn't even know that, to be honest. Now, Top Gun is one of those games where... I'm gonna go ahead and go full screen here. Uh-oh. Got a missile. Danger. Danger. What's the danger? So that's that. Top Gun is another one of those games where when I was a kid trying to play this, I had absolutely no idea what was going on. And I could never make it past the first stage because I didn't understand what was happening, and I didn't understand that you were trying to land the aircraft on the aircraft carrier. I didn't know what the thing was. I thought it was, I didn't know what it was. You know, let's be honest. I grew up in this era. I appreciate it for the nostalgic purposes, but the graphics were absolute garbage. It was all we had back then, and there were some great games, some amazing games that came from that era. And in my opinion, it's because they were so limited. You know, they were forced to... that just closed out a whole thing. You know, they were forced to work with what they had. So today, you know, we got all these fancy graphics, and you can just make things look visually amazing, and maybe people will forget about the terrible game concept that you've created. You know, but back then, all they had was, you had to make something that was compelling and something that was genuinely fun, because there were no graphics. The graphics were just little blocks. You had a lot of little blocks, and you moved them around on the screen, and those were your graphics, so you had to make them look like things. You know, but Top Gun was one of those games where I honestly had no clue what was going on at all. Never made it past the first stage. Even as an adult, playing around with it recently, I don't think I made it past the first stage. Power Punch. Now, my understanding, Power Punch, I found out recently, was supposed to be a sequel to Punch-Out, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, but there was some kind of a licensing issue, and they had to remove Mike Tyson, and they didn't want to do, I don't know what they wanted to do, but that was originally supposed to be a sequel. Punch-Out, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, I played a lot as a kid. Why is Mario not launching? Open. Search, I got a bunch of them on here. Super Mario Bros. 3, everybody's favorite. Let's play that one. Let's play around with the filter so I can show you what that's all about. Video size, video filter. Some of these are cool. NTSC Blarg. Okay, so what that does is, let me see if I can go full screen. Does the shortcut work? F11. It does. The F11 shortcut works for full screen. So what that did, that NTSC Blarg filter, it just kind of added some noise. You know, it kind of broke apart the colors into the RGB. And you got some little glitching going on there. But it does not create that CRT effect. Now, BSNES for the Super Nintendo, that has a filter that recreates the, the convex structure, the convex effect of the old CRT tubes, and it also has like the scan lines. That's pretty cool. This one just has, you know, it's got the NTSC filter. What else does it have on here? I remember it being a little bit better. Maybe it wasn't. Video filter. Let's try this one. That one's different. I don't want to say it's any better or worse though. It's about the same. Super something. Now some of these are designed to make it actually sharper. So one of the big problems with these emulators using it on a modern display device is that, you know, these were created with the CRT in mind. And some people, I mean, people who never played these on a CRT, they're probably not going to notice. But people like me, you know, some things just look terrible because our display devices back then were not as sharp as they are today. So back then there were a lot of things going on, you know, the sharp edges and the blockiness of things. I noticed it particularly with the Nintendo 64. You know, the graphics for the Nintendo 64, when I play it on a modern emulator, it's just so sharp that it kind of looks bad. Uh-oh. But anyway. Uh-oh. Yeah, I suck. Anyway. You know, there are some filters here. What I want to find a more universal approach to the CRT filters. Maybe instead of doing it through the emulator, maybe I find some kind of a pass-through device or something like that. Because like I said, I really want to recreate the experience of emulating these games, or of playing these games rather, and playing it on a modern display that's just so sharp and so crystal clear that a lot of these games, they don't look how they looked, and some of them honestly look better on the CRT because it masked a lot of the blockiness and a lot of the flaws. You'll be able to see more what I'm talking about when I load up BeastNES in a later video to do the Super Nintendo, because it has some excellent filters on there that I think really do a good job of recreating that NES experience on the CRT, or the SNES, not the NES. But what else is there on here? There's cheats on here. I think there's a rewind. You can do save states, of course. Let's see how can I rewind it? You can reload ROM. You know, there's the regular buttons on here that you would have on the NES. Like the power and the reset button. Which is pretty cool. You can pause, so you can pause the emulation. That's something you obviously couldn't do with the original NES. You can do a power cycle, power off. Let's try that. What does power off do? That just takes you back to the main screen here. Settings, NES. Maybe some of these are NES specific. So the general Famicom disk system. Play audio for both. Emulation. There's all kinds of settings in here. I haven't really had the need to mess with a lot of settings. Other than the overclocking. This is just the emulation video filter. You know, the overclock settings, you can use that to fix some games that had issues on the original NES, but then again, it might break some games, like it broke the one that I was trying to play. You can do overscan on here. And this can also emulate other systems, I suppose. I haven't really tried any other systems on Mesen because there are, Beast NES is pretty much the standard for Super Nintendo, and I've been using Project 64 for the Nintendo 64, and it's worked out just fine. Yeah, so that is Mesen, and then Mesen integrates with Launchbox pretty well. So if I close out of here, open up Launchbox. Launchbox is a launcher, and I think it's pretty cool. You could compare it, I guess, to RetroArch, but Launchbox, from what I gather, it doesn't have its own cores and its own emulators. Launchbox is really just a nice, pretty visual way of going through your gaming library, and then it will launch for you whatever you have determined to be the program that you want to launch games with for that particular system. And Mesen integrates very nicely with Launchbox. You can also put settings like command line. If you want to have some default command line inputs when you launch an emulator, you can add those. You can opt to launch it in full screen mode, which is pretty cool. But Mesen works just fine with Launchbox. Launchbox is a little bit clunky, just because there's so much information going on, because you download all of the imagery, the box art, and the cartridge art, and all that stuff. So I guess it's worth showing you while I'm here. But I'll probably do, once my project is more established and I have more systems worked out, then I'll probably do a dedicated video on Launchbox and how to integrate emulators with it. No, what's it asking me? Verified publisher, sure, why not? Installing, updating DirectX. Guess it's been a while since I've turned on Launchbox. No notifications here. Virus and threat protection. Didn't find any viruses or threats. There we go. And it gives you this title screen every time there's some kind of an update. So I just want to say, don't show me again. And close. And then here I was doing a Super Nintendo. Let's go back to the NES. Which game do I want to play? Addams Family. Let's do Punch Out. Power Punch and Punch Out. See, some of the art on here is not the US version. This is obviously, I guess that's Japanese. I don't know. Looks Japanese, but I don't read Japanese, so I wouldn't know. But, some of the art is not on here. But you can add your own art on a case-by-case basis, and you can actually even upload your own from, I did a little bit of research on this. No playtime. I know I played this earlier. Maybe I didn't launch it through Launchbox. Yeah, you can add your own art. Let's see, is it going to go full screen? I guess I didn't opt for it to go to full screen, so I'll just press F11 and it's going to go full screen. Start a new game. Now this is one of the games I was pretty good at. I never beat it. I think I made it to Mike Tyson a couple of times, but I never actually beat the game. It was too difficult. And then we got Mario. It was Mario Day recently, so I picked up some games. That's one of them. Picked that up for someone very near and dear to me. To enjoy the experience of Mario like I did as a child. How's this guy doing? I know know you can one round this guy. I probably won't. Because I am not as good as I used to be. There's my star. But the round is going to be over soon. Yeah, I don't know what it is. If it's because I don't play games as much as I used to. I notice this even with modern games. I gotta concentrate. You know, so I'm not as good as I used to be. And I haven't determined if it's because I simply don't play as much as I used to, or if I'm getting older. You know, my reaction times are not as good as they used to be when I was a kid, when I was a young man. I guess I'm still a young man, but I'm not as young of a man as I used to be. I don't know what it is. I mainly notice it on things like Call of Duty. It's hard for me to really play competitively anymore. And I used to be a beast. I used to be an absolute beast on Call of Duty back in the days of Modern Warfare 2. With my friends, online. I remember that trick. If he's coming at you to do his charge move, you punch him in the stomach at the right time and you knock him out instantly. There we go. I got him. That sucks. I mean, getting older's good in one sense. I mean, I'm glad I have the privilege of getting older. And some people who didn't get older, they didn't make it. So I guess getting older is a privilege, but to be good at video games again. I mean, these I was never really all that good at. Well, that's Mesen. That's my Nintendo, original Nintendo Entertainment System emulation for the Project PC. I don't really know what else to talk about here. So instead of continuing to ramble on and suck at these games that I sucked at even back in the day when I used to play them, I'm just going to end it here. So I hope that was entertaining, educational. You got some sort of benefit out of it, maybe. I don't know. But we're just going to keep on trucking. Next will be the Super Nintendo. I'll probably go through the Nintendo systems up until the Nintendo 64, and then maybe switch over to Sega or PlayStation or something. I don't know. There's no rules. We do what we want here. So, thank you for joining me. Cheers. Oh, look, Sight 1 koozie cup. Got that for free. Later. I need the correct mouse.